Hey guys, Melvin here. Welcome to the attic. We're going to be reading a story from the RPGhorrorstories subreddit. This one was posted by user Pickled Detour. It's about a DM that brings the campaign to a screeching halt in order to pursue something much more important, making OP's character fall in love with their DMPC. Let's check it out. Not nearly as horrific as some of the stories I've seen on here, but there are a lot of similar things that I noticed a few other people experience too, and oh boy, does it still annoy me to this day. We started a new 5e campaign with a new DM, former player in the group, but first time DMing our group in particular. The premise was that everyone had been mind wiped and woken up together in this dungeon with no idea of who or what our characters were. Figuring out our appearances, our classes, stats, etc. was all really different and interesting. We fought goblins, barely escaped, and started to learn little details about our characters. It was genuinely a lot of fun, and we were all really excited to step into the story. And then the DMPC showed up. He was intentionally vague and smug, very tall, dark, and OP vibes. Every check roll against him insta-failed. None of us trusted him as far as we could spit, and we figured that was the point. My PC, half-elf, and another player's, halfling, shared the look of, he's going to be the big bad, isn't he? And mutually decided to keep an eye on him. DMPC sent us on a chain of MacGuffin quests, wherein we'd occasionally stumble upon more information about our pasts. As these quests continued, DMPC continues to randomly show up, usually trailing the party at a distance, showing up in alleys, etc., all suitably creepy things befitting a future villain. My half-elf and the halfling struck up a close friendship, and while most of the other PCs either didn't notice or don't care about the DMPCs hovering, RIP, most of the party had an intelligence score of 10 or less, so the PCs were played appropriately, which was great and hilarious, but alas, oof. The pair of us always made sure to keep track of everything he said or did, and he always talked to my PC. It was always her that was asked to make the perception roll to see if he would be noticed. Always her that he approached, regardless if the party was split up or all together. And my PC hated his guts. She was supposed to be neutral but driven, and hate people who look down on others. And that was how the DMPC acted. So she naturally was not a fan of him and his brooding, snarky treatment of the rest of her party. Time goes on, the quests continue, and eventually we stumble into a city/market where the people recognize my half-elf. Everyone is immediately asking about her and the DMPC, how he's doing, that they're all surprised to see her without him, etc. And naturally she's very confused. Information digging ensues. Turns out she traveled with this guy a lot, and no one knows or is willing to say much else. Okay, cool. So all that stalking and attempts at conversation make a bit more sense. They knew each other. Next time DMPC shows up, she treats him exactly the same as she had been, and he gets increasingly more frustrated. DM asks me out of game what the deal is and why my PC is still treating theirs so badly. After finding out that they used to know each other, I responded honestly that my PC doesn't trust him. She doesn't have her memories. She only knows him as he is now. And as of now, he's a dick. She doesn't like him, and that's not going to change because some random people keep asking how their travels are going. DMPC starts showing up more frequently. Now he flat out ignores the rest of the party to the point of ridiculousness. He won't accept the quest tokens from them, won't speak with them or make eye contact. We were given an amulet to call for his aid if we needed help, and it suddenly stopped working unless it was my PC who used it. Encounters that were already poorly scaled to begin with became impossible. We were barely level 6 and facing multiple monsters at a time with ACs over 20 and resistances to every type of damage in the book. We approached the DM about it and were told that this was the reason we had the amulet. So, use it. My half-elf is a weird homebrew necromancer of the DM's making, and DMPC starts giving her crazy buffs and items that only she can use. The rest of the party is naturally starting to get frustrated when almost every encounter is a near TKO. where only my half-elf is conscious to save the day. My PC and the halfling decide to break off from the rest of the party to do some research on their own, hoping out of game that this will keep the rest of our group safe from terrible encounters. The two of them travel around for a bit, trying to find a way to trap or do something to this DMPC, only for the halfling to magically vanish. My half-elf tries to find him, but no checks she makes, even nat 20s, give any information. No one in any town nearby knows him, has seen him, or has any idea where he was going. So, she tries to return to the rest of the party, who, surprise surprise, she also cannot find any trace of. So she has to beg the DMPC to bring her back to them, and he does, smugly thanking her for her groveling and making comments about how much he prefers her like this. And where is the party? Somewhere hidden and terrible? Nope, just in another city that they have already been through multiple times, that the party collectively owns a house in, a place obviously she never could have traced them to on her own. And now magically, the halfling PC has a long-lost wife and a whole brood of children in that same city. He'd been zapped back to his family home by some sort of summoning spell, and that was why he vanished. Our halfling keeps trying to leave, saying he doesn't remember this family and really doesn't care much about them. The family is horrifically upset and begs him to stay, begs him not to give up his loving home to go off gallivanting with a half-elf of all things. And the DMPC talks to him for the first time in literal months of in and out of game time to call him heartless and a whole slew of other insults. Our party leaves the town and is promptly attacked by a spirit of greed, as you do. Another near TKO ensues, and so goes the pattern. Finally, the day comes and the DMPC reveals himself as the big bad. We manage to destroy a talisman controlling his armies and call on the power of every ally we've made throughout the campaign. DMPC shows up, furious, and wipes out almost the entire party in a single round. Only 2 members of the party survive in the end, with one, of course, being the half-elf. DMPC vanishes with an evil laugh, and the DM closes out the campaign by saying, "We stopped the evil but didn't defeat the villain." That the world was safe, but we sacrificed ourselves to get there. Which, okay, fine. But then they decide to share all our collective backstories, as we would have reclaimed our memories as we fought the creature that took them. Most were mundane, nobles who disappeared looking for a higher purpose, traveling merchants with a chip on their shoulder, all very PG cookie-cutter origins, which would have been fine. But then there was my half-elf. She'd apparently been a victim of horrific physical and sexual abuse all her life, which was explained in graphic detail. She'd only been saved a few years prior by the kind-hearted DMPC, who arrived on the scene, slew her captors, and absconded with her into the night. They traveled together that entire time, saving people and growing closer. She was supposed to be endlessly devoted to him, practically tripping over herself to earn his approval. And then he'd gone and cast some BS spell that accidentally took her memories from her, alongside all the other PCs. And boom, here they were. And this whole time, his jackassery and snark was his way of showing how much he missed their time together, and how upset he was that she refused to love him again, even though he so clearly cared about her. The DM went on to describe everyone's futures, particularly the exact tortures that the halfling was facing in hell. Practically every member of the group was dead and shuffled off into their little corner of the afterlife. The one other surviving member besides my PC, a half-orc, returned to his family, grew old, and died. And then my stupid half-elf was doomed to spend the rest of her life wandering around alone, struck with horrible PTSD from her childhood filled with abuse, before eventually being found once more by the DMPC, and who even knows? I stopped listening. I was so furious. We'd all collectively tried talking to this DM throughout the campaign about the difficulty of roles, the unfairness and inflexibility of the plot, and about the clear favoritism of the DMPC towards my PC. How everyone felt that they were just the side characters in what pretty much amounted to the half-elf story. Everyone had sort of just tolerated it. We bitched to each other on the side, but mostly just shrugged it off as, at least none of us have to worry about DM work this time, I guess. But yeah, that ending, it sent people reeling. I've never seen people walk out of a D&D session before, but everyone pretty much just stood up without a word and left. Needless to say, we haven't played with this person since, but yikes. It was a wild ride. I guess the take-home is that if you think the DM or their PC is being weirdly obsessive about a character for no other reason than just because, you need to GTFO before you get sucked into acting as the long-suffering love interest or their self-insert. TLDR, DMPC was obsessed with my half-elf PC that the DM themselves made for a memory loss campaign. When she ignored the DMPC, the rest of the party was punished, TKO'd repeatedly, and eventually all permakilled, at which point the DM revealed the half-elf had been previously saved by the DMPC from a lifetime of abuse, and would now wander alone and miserable forever until he found her again, and she accepted him. That really was a wild ride. Not only did the DM try to force a creepy romance plotline onto OP, they had designed OP's characters just for the purpose. This DM engineered a scenario where OP has to play the role of someone who falls in love with their dark and brooding DMPC at all costs. The DM then has to take it a step further by getting annoyed at OP for not catching on. I've mentioned the spite spiral before and can think of no better term to describe what ensues. The DM pretty much blows up their entire campaign in an obsession to right this wrong in the timeline. They went as far as to damn Halfling to eternal torment in hell for the crime of getting close to OP's character. I'd say the advice for DMs is pretty simple here. DMs, don't design a player's experience around fulfilling your sexual or romantic fantasies. Do just about anything else. Alright everyone, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining me here in the attic. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload new videos. Take care of yourselves out there. This is Melvin, in the attic, signing out.